The first one I want to talk about is the matter of Duarte-Gonzales. Not always that we start out with the BIA, but the BIA issued a non-citizen friendly decision, so I've got to give them some love. This is the one about the unlawful presence bar, 212A9B, the
Hmm.
10-year bar, or 3-year bar, I suppose, for that matter, for just unlawful presence that's triggered when you leave the United States. But it's very important that this is not 212A9C, that of course you know about, that other people need to recognize. This
Very
is not
important,
the
yeah.
permanent bar. This is not, when you've left after accruing unlawful presence or after a final order of removal and then entered the United States illegally. That is 212A9C. That's the permanent bar that requires 10 years outside the U.S. before you even can waive it, file a waiver. But 212A9B is just the one that we always file I-601A waivers for. And in Duarte-Gonzales, the BIA said that the 10 years can run while the non-citizen is inside the United States. They don't have to wait 10 years outside the U.S. And actually, the BIA relied on 212A9C to reach that holding because the BIA said, look, 212A9C is right next door. That says you got to wait outside. 212A9B does not say that, so you don't have to.
Yeah, it's interesting they did this. As you know, like USCIS already made this decision a little while back. And so when it popped up, I started getting messages about this. It's still going to be a small group of people who are affected by this, who have the opportunity, have done this, back and forth. So essentially, it's if someone somehow got a waiver and re-entered, or somehow had a tourist visa that was still valid, and they didn't pay attention, they got back in.
Yeah.
They could run the clock that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's essentially it. Someone has a tourist visa, and they somehow get back in legally without a misrepresentation just because they mess up at the border. I think it is probably a small group of people, because you have to enter lawfully that second time when essentially you weren't supposed to be let in at all. And it almost becomes dangerous too, because if I'm a USCIS adjudicator, or an immigration judge or a trial attorney, and I'm trying to be adversarial, I think there are immediate issues of, well, how did this person come in with their visa? Did they make a fraud at the border? And if so, then we're not talking about 212A9B, we're talking about 212A6CI, and you've got big problems there. So, it's a good thing. Hopefully it doesn't lead to an increase in fraud finding. Also, don't want to be the one who's out here um, telling ways to get at non-citizens. But
Yeah,
it's cool. It's a good
yeah.
decision, and it's good to have it.
Yeah, a lot of times it's the waiver that they're coming in. It's always arguable. Like, yeah, if you have a facially valid visa, I actually have had it where people, especially for the border crossing card from Mexico, where if for various reasons they overstayed, it should be invalidated because they overstayed, or they go outside like the definite area, it doesn't automatically get invalidated. But CP doesn't pay attention necessarily to this stuff, so it's easy enough. But yeah, they always come back and say, I think they have weaker grounds to stand on when it comes to that. And then, visa waiver people might sometimes just get in. I had this guy come to us, and he had a bunch of criminal history, and he just didn't mention the visa waiver. He's from a European country, and he just came in multiple times, and then eventually wanted to adjust status. And I'm like, "Well, tell me about your history." And he's like, "Been in prison and stuff." I'm like, "How do they not catch that? You're from like
Yeah.
you're a country that shares all the information with the U.S. You come multiple times. CBP knows if you scratch your nose. How do they not know that you're in prison for like 5 years?" So like, it's kind of nuts how this stuff works out. But if he was able to get in, obviously prison stuff's going to be a major issue for adjusting or something. But if he got in, then he got in.
As will the visa waiver stuff. I mean, that's a whole nother bag of worms.
Yeah.
The rights of visa waiver violators.